So I thought while I looked nice and all dressed up and I had the time to myself, I might as well film 2 videos in one night because I actually read 2 Dollar Tree books in 1 week. Yes, thank you. I know I'm so talented. I know I'm such a fast reader. So I actually finished The Storm Crow on my way back from a wedding over the weekend, and then I finished Please Send Help the next day. I started this on my lunch break yesterday and I ended it on my lunch break today. So that's less than a day, I think, or less than 2 days, 24 hours, something like that. I'm not sure. I can't do math. That's 24 hours. This is a very, very fast read. Please Send Help by Gabe Dunn and Allison Raskin is a book told in like texts and emails to each other between 2 best friends who have just gotten their first like career-centered jobs, trying to navigate their early 20s. Like I said, it's told within text and emails, so it is just very fast. It's already 304 pages, and then there's a lot of negative space, a lot of one-lines. This was such a fun read. Oh, I forgot to do my intro. Hi, I'm Jamie. Welcome to my channel, and I'm going to be going over this book. I want to do a little bit of a note on the authors. If you're not aware, Gabe Dunn and Allison Raskin were internet personalities in the 2010s, early to mid 2010s. They started their online personas on BuzzFeed. They were featured in a lot of BuzzFeed videos, both the like sketch comedies and also the like normal so-and-so tries this product, whatever videos that were very popular on BuzzFeed. A lot of these sketches that they were in revolved around them being best friends, and they were actually 2 of the first to leave BuzzFeed and start their own channel called Just Between Us. This channel ran for a few years. It was an advice and sketch comedy channel, so I think on one of the days of the week they would upload a sketch. The very odd couple dynamic, Gabe being a very out and queer and kind of gross person, hygienically, a very high sex drive, willing to do drugs, willing to do this and that. And then Allison's personality was that she was very neurotic. She has contamination OCD. She has anxiety. And so she is like, you need to do things my way. You can't touch me because you're dirty. The friendship that they have being kind of an odd couple, opposites attract kind of thing. The sketches were always really funny. I really like them. I don't know if the advice videos were also sketches or if it was more of an improv, like we're going to be talking about this, make sure to say this, this, and this, but then the rest was just kind of its own thing. Allison and Gabe were good personas on their own, but then at least in the advice videos, they added a 3rd friend, a guy named Igor, and his dynamic between the 2 best friends is that he was in love with Allison, but Allison rejected him and they were still best friends, and then he and Gabe had hooked up, and then they like bonded over the fact that they were both in love with Allison. I don't know if I had outgrown it or it had already stopped posting, but at some point I was not keeping up with Just Between Us, and eventually on TikTok I kept seeing Allison's videos pop up, and then I started to see Gabe's videos pop up as well. And then I found out like they got back together and made a podcast and talked about some things, that they had actually stopped being friends at a certain point and stopped uploading videos. And I think that might have been after I had started to not be interested, or maybe it was around the same time, I'm not sure. Saw that they had reconnected and I was like, oh my god, that's so cool. And now they're making like internet videos again, more advice stuff, podcasts, TikToks. Allison, for her own channel and her own persona online, talks a lot about her own contamination OCD and generalized anxiety and things that she has worked on in therapy, and kind of just educating the public on those kind of issues and mental health and whatnot, and dating when you have a very panicky disorder such as generalized anxiety, or something that can be considered high maintenance like OCD, specifically contamination OCD. And then for Gabe's presence, I haven't kept up with Gabe as much. His is always going to be about queer media. He is a genderqueer, I think trans mask is his official, I think it's he, they, maybe, I'm not sure. I didn't actually check before I started filming. Part of the queer umbrella. He had always been out as bi, sometimes as polyamorous. I don't know if he still considers himself polyamorous or considers himself bi still. Like I said, I did very little research about them as they are and as they exist in today's world than I do from like 2015 when I was watching Just Between Us in their old apartment with their old couch and whatnot. They are very funny people. If you know them from BuzzFeed, if you know them from their podcast or whatnot, they're very funny. They've had some really great times writing for sketch comedy, and they have written this book and another book before. This is the second time I've picked up a book thinking it was a standalone and then found out that it was like a sequel. First book is called I Hate Everyone But You, which I knew they had written, but I thought this was just like a standalone, like a different book, not part of a series. But no, these are the same characters that are in I Hate Everyone But You. I've not read I Hate Everyone But You, but I did read Please Send Help. I found this at the Dollar Tree and I was like, oh my God, so nostalgic. I used to watch these people in high school. Let me, read about them now. So I finally gave the book a chance and I loved it. It's a very fun book. It's lighthearted. You're not going in for any in-depth ideology. You're going in for a fun time, okay? You're going in to feel good and see these two friends laugh at each other, and that's great. And sometimes you need a book like that, especially if the book takes like a day to read. So you have Ava, who is the generally anxious, generalized panic disorder, anxiety character, who even jokes about her own insanity, and she's like, I overreact, I get it, I'm insane, things like that. And then she has moved to New York from wherever she was, I think California, and is employed at an unpaid internship with a late night talk host as like an intern writing jokes, helping around the filming process. She has moved to New York City, and like I said, it's an unpaid internship, meaning her parents are the ones paying for the apartment. And then you have Jen. Jen is this socially liberated, genderqueer, anarchist journalist person who has taken a very shitty job in a very rural town in Florida just because it was the only journalist position she could get hired for. Quickly stirs up shit, and Ava quickly gets herself into weird situations. I don't know if you've noticed something with their names or their personalities, but these two people I think just wrote characters based off their internet personalities. I don't want to say their actual lives, but I'm definitely going to say that these are the internet personas that they display online, or at least they displayed online in the 2018-2019 time frame. I know that people are multifaceted and they're not exactly who they portray themselves online, but these characters are exactly how Allison and Gabe acted on camera in the Just Between Us videos, even in the sketches, but also not in the sketches. So these characters were just really fun because it was nostalgic for me to see these parodies of these personalities that I grew up watching on this YouTube channel. Ava finds herself in a situation where one of the bosses, like the intern boss, is interested in her and she starts to date him. And Jen is like, maybe don't do that because he's your immediate supervisor and you're just going to get your heart hurt. And also he could get in trouble for that and you could definitely get in trouble for that. And Ava, oh my God. Ava is like, no, he's not going to do that to me. He likes me. I'm special. We're keeping it a secret. And then Jen is very against a lot of the conservative views of this small town. So obviously she starts to stir up shit. Finds out that there's a homeless shelter that refuses to house people if they are openly queer, unless they are taking classes to not be queer anymore, meaning conversion therapy, which is a terrible and traumatic thing. It's this biggest news story. It starts to go viral about this religious shelter not accepting queer people and being not a great organization. There's other things going on. There's a lot of romance drama. There's a lot of fun interactions between Jen and Ava, not Gabe and Allison. Oh my god, they're both G and A's. I can't do it. You have a lot of like love struggles. So Ava trying to be with her boss and then not being with her boss, and then her roommate maybe, but also not her roommate, and then Jen trying to find queer people in the area and finding this one girl that's like bi-curious but only for the male gaze, and then Jen kind of acting a little bit weird because she's like, this straight girl isn't straight, I always turn them gay, and then Ava's like, no, you can't turn somebody gay, and she's like, it's a joke, shut up. There's a lot of things. These characters are not great characters. They have flaws, they are nuanced, which I like, and it also makes them funny because they play off each other so well, and there are some dated memes. They're supposed to be Gen Z because they're like 22 in 2019, which is like definitely the older side of Gen Z, if not the youngest side of millennials, but Gabe and Allison are definitely millennials, so it's millennials trying to write Gen Z, which kind of works. Kind of works because they grew up on the internet, but also they say The Office is the best sitcom of our generation, which is not true. It's obviously How I Met Your Mother. Something I do want to touch on is the herpes. So at one point, Ava contracts herpes, and that is a very scary thing to go through. Ava, obviously being an anxious person, freaks out and thinks that her life has ended. I knew that with writers like Gabe and Allison, it was not going to be like a bad example of herpes, but I was kind of waiting for the reveal that it wasn't, that she was overreacting, that it was some other kind of rash, or like not herpes but a different STD. But no, it is actually herpes. She has herpes, which is a very stigmatized STI just because it is a virus, and so it's something that you can't really get out of your body once it's there. So it's super stigmatized, and this book does a really good job of kind of taking away that stigma and saying that like, this is a person who has herpes. She didn't get it because of doing something bad. She got it because there was a character who did not disclose it, which can happen to anyone. Or you could have congenital herpes, or there's a lot of different kinds of herpes. If you didn't know, a cold sore is a form of herpes. So a lot of people have herpes, and it's very stigmatized because of the fact that it's an STD or an STI. But in fact, it is like a very common thing, and that there are a lot of medications to keep it from spreading or like affecting you or your daily life. And so they took a very nuanced approach of like, obviously it's scary and upsetting to find out that you've been infected with a virus that is going to affect your life, but it is not always the end of the world. As long as you are able to access healthcare, you can take control of it. And Ava has to go through this character journey of like taking control of her life, and it's kind of reflected with the fact that she now has herpes. And I really liked the very gentle and nuanced take of it. I do think there were some jokes about other STDs or STIs or sexually transmitted viruses that were a little less tasteful and kind of went against that message. For example, they say like, oh, well, you might have herpes, but it's not AIDS, or at least it's not HIV. And that kind of hit me because I do have some friends and loved ones that have HIV, and you know, they live very fulfilling and wonderful lives because of the access to medication and whatnot that we now have. It's not a death sentence. So I think maybe we should have not compared it, saying like, oh, at least it's not HIV, or HIV is worse, because that is like a thing that a lot of people also have to deal with. And so you can't really say like destigmatize herpes and then say, well, at least it's not HIV, because that's way worse. Yeah, so I don't know, that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. It was like, if you're gonna make this like destigmatization claim, like say it for all STDs maybe. I don't know. That's my little gripe with it. But other than that, I really liked the story. I thought it was very fun. I think it was a solid 4 stars. It's not too deep, so it wasn't like gut-wrenching. It wasn't super emotional, but it was fun. It was nuanced. It had character development. It had character growth. I think my other gripe with it is that it kind of ends all of a sudden. Jen is out of a job, and so Ava is like, well, come to New York. And throughout this whole thing, Jen has been making jabs at Ava for having rich parents, and Jen obviously does not have rich parents, and so she can't just fly to New York when she wants, or, you know, take a job for free just because, you know, her parents aren't able to pay for her housing or anything, and she's got student loans and she's got bills and things like that. In order to resolve this, Jen gets a job that she applied for in New York, and Ava just lets her sleep on the couch. And then in the epilogue, it's like they're roommates. And Ava's old roommate, who's been with her the entire time, who has been like super supportive and helpful and has like a very meaningful relationship with Ava as a friend, is no longer a roommate. And it's like, where did he go? They talk about his stuff like they hate him. Like they're like, we got to get rid of Dana's stuff. And it's like, well, Dana was a good friend to Ava. Like, why does he get in the cold shoulder all of a sudden? And maybe I forgot something. Did he, like, no, he was always nice to her. I don't know. That was the only thing I didn't like. Okay, I've been talking forever. All in all, I like this book. I thought it was great. Oh, 20 bucks. I think I'd pay 20 bucks for this, especially since I like the writers, and it's kind of like that nostalgia aspect of it. So yeah, this book was worth $1, and it's definitely worth the $18.99 that it was retailing for. So I think I would have bought it, which is great because I don't really have a track record of liking books by people who are also YouTubers. Axiom's End and Iron Widow were a struggle for me to get through, but I like this one, so maybe it's just because it's easier to read. And that's gonna be it from me. If you have read or watched any of the Just Between Us sitcom advice YouTube video channel things, I don't know, what were your thoughts of it? Have you read the book as well? I don't have any other questions. Okay, that's it. Bye-bye. I loved Igor. Igor was like my favorite part of the Just Between Us talk show side of the channel. And he makes a cameo in this as like a guy called Grabby Igor. And I feel like they just did him dirty. Like, that's so rude. Why call him Grabby Igor? That's so mean.